to go.
Were any of you getting like a modem tone at all yesterday?
I kept hearing a beep from somebody. I don't know what it was. I think somebody had their either phone or Facebook page was beeping.
So, Mr. Spence, I might be able to address that. There was some commercial construction in the unit next to mine, so it kind of sounded like a drill every now and then. If that was the noise that you were talking about, that was my lovely neighbors.
Huh. It was more like that screeching modem sound.
Oh,
Yeah, it might have been on
Yeah.
my end.
Like the
Yeah, I remember
AOL
that.
connecting sound?
Pardon me?
Like the AOL connecting sound from the 90s?
Yeah, right.
Huh.
Right.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? That's interesting.
Yeah, I got sort of nostalgic.
that brings back bad memories, actually.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's 9 o'clock. Looks like we get to start again. It's November 19th, 2020, 9 o'clock a.m. This is CDR 20-001, the S'Klallam Tribe SEPA appeal on their outpatient clinic application. We are in day 3 of hearing now, in the middle of testimony from Chief Crane from the Sequim Police Department at the stage where I believe it was shoot, where were we? I think it was Mr. Spence's turn, actually. Or no, I needed to go through my questioning, right? I think that's where we were, wasn't it?
Right.
Murphy, did you finish
Okay.
yesterday?
I did conclude my
Yeah,
question.
yeah. Okay, yeah. So that's the point I was going at. Mr. Spence, a question for you. I mean, did you plan on participating in the hearing when we had the public testify? Because I was thought if not, we could just do the public this afternoon or something. I didn't know what your plans were in that regard. We could give you a recording of the hearing, after the fact, but then of course you wouldn't be there to object if someone from the public brought something in. So I didn't know what your preference was there.
I technically hadn't planned, but you raise a good point about not being there to object to to respond to somebody's objections. So I guess I would prefer that was it next Tuesday we had talked about?
Yeah, we had the rest of it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I think it would. We're probably all not looking forward to an entire day of this, so that's fine. I think we can wrap it up. Then that'll give the attorneys a chance to prepare their closing. If you want to do it verbally that day, we can talk about maybe how we're going to do that at the end of the hearing today. But anything else before we jump back into this?
Well, closing, that actually raises a good question. So your order says that I am, SOS is not a party, but I am allowed to cross-examine. Do I get to make a closing too?
Actually, I wouldn't mind, just because you're the only kind of, I mean, the city and the tribe have, they're invested in the agreement. They've agreed upon it, of course. And so they're not going to be saying anything critical of it. And it would be nice to get one person to give a critical evaluation of it. So yeah, I'd appreciate if you want to participate in the closing. That'd be
Sure. Thank you.
okay. All right. Okay.
For the benefit of the record, the tribe renews its objections to SOS's and Mr. Spence's expanded participation beyond that of a party or a non-party.
Understood. Yeah.
The city joins that objection again for purposes of the record.
Okay, sure. That's good. And of course, following the format of the hearing and the burdens of proof, that the city and the tribe would do their closing after Mr. Spence if we're doing them verbally, so that you'd still have the last word there. But anyway, okay, let's jump back to
Mr. Williams, this is Bill Steger. I'm just curious as to when you figured out when I would be on. You had me listed as part of the public involvement.
Right, yeah, and you're on the schedule as after the general public. I mean, the original intent was to have you and Miss Wilkie testify after the public was done, so they, to minimize the time they had to wait in order to testify. Miss Wilkie had some scheduling problems with her work, so I allowed her to go, before the public testified, but otherwise it would have been last. So it looks like very likely you wouldn't be testifying, Mr. Steger, until Tuesday when we're finally done with this hearing.
Interesting.
Yeah. I appreciate all the people who've been watching too. We've had 70 people sitting here through this whole hearing, and I mean, the original estimates for the presentations of the tribe in the city was going to be a couple hours total, but of course that's taken a little bit longer. But anyway, let's jump right back into Chief Crane then, and now I believe it was the questions I had. Anthony, do you have the questions that were posted yesterday still that you could send me?
Apologize, took me a second to find the mute button.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
sure.
sir, I do. I'm actually pulling those up for you now and I can email them right away.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's good. So just give them a minute there. Well, while I'm waiting for those to come in, I'll ask the questions that that I had, Chief Crane. See if I can remember them now. We talked a little bit about possibly doing a monitoring program where we'd look at, did the Matt Clinic actually create any crime over the next 3 years, or, create any more nuisance or any increases in homelessness? Is that kind of information something that the police department could get in an accurate fashion? I mean, Sequim's a small community. You probably know a lot of the homeless population there. I don't know how specifically, and when you're doing intake on people who are arrested, you probably ask what they were doing in Sequim, that kind of stuff. I mean, if you were asked to figure out, how much more new crime was attributable to the Matt Clinic, or how much homelessness was attributable to the Matt Clinic, is that information that you would have access to or could compile?
Yeah, I mean, within reason, and I think I actually kind of thought that was why I was participating in that panel, right? The committee that's being spoken of. So certainly, with our connections with the SHHC group and our access to law enforcement data, criminal justice system data, and our kind of connections with activities out on the city streets, I certainly think I would be in a position to have a knowledgeable conversation with the clinic.
Okay. And then my other question, it kind of dealt with, I mean, you had interviewed a lot of other jurisdictions to see what impact these Matt clinics had there. In the course of the hearing for Sequim, there was a bunch of data presented on demographics, and there's an older demographic in Sequim, that kind of thing. I would imagine that probably correlates possibly with a lower crime rate. So in terms of, I mean, is it fair to compare Sequim to these other jurisdictions when presumably Sequim is a bit quieter town, has a much lower crime rate, or is my presumption incorrect that Sequim does have a lower crime rate than most typical communities?
Yes, you're correct that we do have a pretty low crime rate. But my question to the other communities wasn't, why isn't your crime rate as low as ours? My question to these other chiefs was there an appreciable difference, a recognizable difference in your crime load at your city, your homeless community? So I wasn't trying to suggest that they had a crime rate similar to ours, but I did try to pick communities that are more similar to us in the respect of rural, lack of access to resources like a Seattle I-5 corridor would, drawing from a larger pool, right? Your Aberdeen clinic was pulling from Hoquiam, Aberdeen was pulling from a large geographic region, the same with Kelso, the same with the Didgewalla clinic. So I tried to pick places that seem to have similar circumstances to ours. But yeah, I wasn't trying to, does that answer your question?
Yeah, a little. I mean, but it still seems to me, I mean, Hoquiam, I guess, would be the penultimate example. If they have 100 burglaries per year and Sequim has 10 and the Matt Clinic is responsible to 5, Hoquiam would tell you it's just a 5% increase. It wasn't a big deal, but in Sequim, that's a huge deal. So, I mean, look at it from that perspective, or?
You know, it's an interesting thing to talk about demographics, and there's the suggestion that because we have an older population that we don't have crime, right? So the answer is zero. We do have crime.
Uh,
And the opioid addiction thing is a very interesting addiction, right? You've got people who have become addicted to pills that don't fit your normal demographic of people who become drug addicts. So it's a much more nuanced and complicated topic, and I don't even pretend to be an expert, but I would also suggest that it is not a black and white, that that there are going to be large percentages of people just itching to go out and commit crimes. So I don't know that, right? I have nothing to suggest that there's going to be an explosion of crime, and a lot more anecdotal and factual, information from other chiefs to suggest that what they thought might happen didn't happen. So we're probably not going to see the large impact that has been suggested.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. All right, I'll move on then to the questions I was able to find here. First one, Chief Craig, how much did you and Sheriff Benedict spend at the Digitwalla Clinic during your tour? Did you go outside the clinic and visit properties immediately adjacent? Did you visit surrounding businesses and ask them if they had any problems with the clinic being so near?
So I did not go with the sheriff, so I have no knowledge of what the sheriff experienced or did. He can speak for himself, and he certainly has submitted information to the record that explains where he stands on that. My visit, it was a full day, but a lot of that was travel to and from. But I probably spent a good 3 hours there getting a good tour of the facility, business practices, their operational setup, what they've experienced, what they've learned from, what they thought worked and didn't work. And I did view the kind of the operation, and the fact is it's in a kind of a business area with like other, right? It's not in a downtown core. It's not, it doesn't have restaurants and things sitting next to it. It's got a bus stop there next to it. So no, I didn't go canvass the other business owners. I didn't do that, but I did notice kind of the setting that it was in. I was a little bit at a disadvantage because it was under significant construction. They're doing an expansion there. And so there was a lot of chaos and contractors' trucks and fencing that kind of altered your normal, probably exterior flow of how things worked in that general neighborhood.
Okay. Next question, what's the capacity of the Sequim jail?
Well, that's spoken by somebody who doesn't know how things work around here.
Uh-huh.
So the Sequim Police Department has a holding cell. We have about 4 holding cells that are temporary in nature, meaning that we bring somebody in, kind of process them, take their fingerprints, interview them. But if there's somebody's going to go to the jail, they go to the Clallam County Sheriff's Department run jail in Port Angeles.
Okay. Next question is, police chief, do you observe currently no, that's not written right. Do you observe current activity in Sequim indicating the opioid epidemic exists in Sequim? Is it only community youth, or do you see things like overdose in the senior community?
Yes. So the opioid problem has been in Sequim for probably over 15 years. And we've seen it manifest itself in different ways. First, it was people stealing their relatives' pills out of their medicine cabinet. And then they were stealing it from various and sundry. We had a lot of healthcare facility thefts, that type of thing. And then once the state of Washington and the other licensing entities started to tighten up how healthcare facilities distributed their medications, then that theft problem went away. And then it was prescription forgery, and it was people doctor shopping. And then the medical community started to tighten up how they did business as far as prescriptions and working with pharmacies. And so that theft problem, that forgery problem kind of went away. Right about kind of then, right, you're starting to squeeze the balloon a little bit of where you can get access to this to this drug. Then that started to be where heroin kind of showed up. and heroin showed up quickly, insistently, and it exploded. And frankly, Sequim has had a very small heroin problem over the years. It's just not been a drug of choice for the most part. So it was really kind of a shock to our system, I think. And when I say our system, I mean the entire community, medical, jail, everybody. It really took us all by surprise. So we have unfortunately seen opioid abuse by kids as young as 12. And we've seen it in folks who are in their 60s. We've had an overdose of fentanyl patches by a gentleman that was, I think, in his early 60s. We've had overdose attempts and overdose, right, that weren't successful, and then overdoses of folks that we had no idea had problems. That they weren't in our criminal element, right? So we didn't know who they were. So I guess the answer is, it's out there. It's a problem. I would say that law enforcement is not the sole source of that information, because we only see a slice of that pie. There are probably people who are addicted that we never see, and we never have any interactions with them at all. So we are only a part of the. We only have part of that data.
Okay. All right. Next question. Do our officers currently carry Narcan? If not, are they going to once the clinic is up and running? Does the city have funds available for officers to be trained in administering Narcan as well as keeping an adequate supply?
So here in the city, we're in a unique position. We have a fairly small geographic footprint of our town, and the fire district is our fire department, right? Clallam County Fire District 3. They are headquartered in the city of Sequim. So when you look at response times, the EMS folks are typically there, if not before us, right after us. And so we've been in consultation with the fire department for the last several years, and have made a decision that at this time it's not necessary for us to carry naloxone. We are able to give first aid, CPR, whatever is necessary, so that the medics can then run right in and do it. So we have partner agencies, Port Angeles and the Sheriff's Department, that have been carrying naloxone, and they've had positive experiences with doing so. But at this time, we have not considered it necessary. If we were to have information or data that would suggest that it is a good idea for us to carry it, the fire department is more than capable of assisting us. They would work with their medical expertise in the hospital to get us certified to do that, and they would help provide us with the material to do those things. And while it is not an inexpensive endeavor to do that, it is certainly something that we could afford and we could make happen.
Okay. All right. Next question. Is it correct that the Didjawalla Clinic is 5 miles outside of the city of Anacortes, not near the Anacortes Business District, and is adjacent to an industrial park, refinery, tank farm?
Yeah, 3, 4, or 5 miles. I don't know what the exact distance is. I didn't drive into Anacortes to have lunch that day. We caught lunch at a different location, so I don't exactly know. But it is in a more industrial area.
Okay. All right. Next question. Does the city of Sequim have laws in place to keep the potential homeless dropouts from the MAT Clinic from setting up a tent city in the surrounding open spaces in and around Sequim?
Yeah, I mean, working with the homelessness issue is not an easy one, and it is not a simple one. Within the confines of what the court system has judged legal and versus illegal, what we're capable of doing, we do have tools and we do have mechanisms to address encampments where they happen. But each individual circumstance is individual. We have to deal with each location separately and within guidelines.
Okay, all right. And that kind of raises a question that I had in the back of my mind, and this might be a little bit outside of your area, but I'll take a crack at it, is that I think that some jurisdictions have dealt with nuisance properties like bars that, overserve and that kind of thing. They file a nuisance action to shut them down on the basis that they're a public hazard or something. I mean, are you familiar with that process? And is that something that could be used against a MAT clinic if it served as a major source of crime in Sequim. Like I say, I was just kind of curious if that was a remedy available to the city, if there was a real problem there.
Yeah, the city does have a fairly robust nuisance program. We've continued to improve our code, so we have more tools available to us in that regard. So, you know, code enforcement issues are not easy. They are, right, as you can imagine, this has been a 3-day hearing on a land use.
Right. Yeah.
Code enforcement issues are a legal process, and so depending on the difficulty of the individual that you're working with, they can be quite adversarial. For the most part, we seek voluntary compliance. And I can tell you that with the vast majority of businesses in town, we try to work cooperatively with them to address whatever attractive nuisance issues that they may bring. You know, Walmart's not a bad example. I mean, the fact is they have a huge footprint in town, and they can't always police every inch of it to the extent that we would all hope that they would. So we work with various businesses to try to address issues that happen in and around or because of their presence in the city.
Okay, great. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, next question. Does law enforcement currently offer bus fare to homeless individuals? If so, will this continue?
So we have a small fund that we utilize to address urgent emergency needs by folks who may find themselves in some version of distress. That may mean that in the middle of the night, we offer up a motel voucher for somebody who finds them somewhat homeless and needs that quick and immediate assistance before they can get into the system or find or move on to where they might have housing. We also provide gasoline for people who run out of gas, and we do have the ability to do bus vouchers for folks who need to get someplace. You can trust that we vet those people, and we don't just give things out freely. It is based on an emergent need, and we document that, and we are audited by our finance department. And that money is donated to us by various helping groups in the community. A lot of churches provide that funding for us so that we can do that, because churches aren't sometimes in as good a position to kind of vet people. So rather than having them getting petitioned for help over and over and over again, it's easier to give the money to us, and then we do that vetting.
Okay. Next question. With the excuse me, with the several OpNet drug raids in our county netting several strips of the common MAT clinic drug Suboxone, do you know where these strips originate from? Could it be from the MAT patients in our county that receive several strips on the weekend when the MAT clinics are closed? Also, are these raids busting people with previous MAT attendance?
Yeah, I don't know that any of us would know, and I certainly don't have any data as to whether or not they're MAT clinic patients. And certainly, right, there's the Jamestown Clinic on Fifth Avenue is not the only physician's office that is capable of doing Suboxone with their patients. I actually have to say that we're pleased that the medical community has taken a significant role in addressing the opioid crisis. If they had not stepped in and stepped up their game, then we would have a bigger problem on the streets that we do now. But to get back to the question, the fact is, yes, I'm sure that occasionally Suboxone gets used and abused and traded and sold on the open market. One of my questions to both Dijwalik and to the Jamestown folks was to their operational of how they dispense their drugs. And they gave me answers that reassured me that they are less likely than other clinics to have their medications end up on the black market.
Okay, all right. Next question. Are you aware that there was a newspaper article written about the Dijwalik Clinic in Anacortes were having to give out tents, Narcan, and toiletries to their to their patients? Do you have a plan when that happens in Sequim?
Yeah, I did read that article, and of course, I did visit the Diswallett Clinic, and they were able to talk to me. Their explanation is not dissimilar to what we talked about yesterday regarding the social navigator. A certain portion of their clientele will certainly probably be housing challenged and may be homeless. So it is not unusual for a social navigator to have access to resources. And some of those resources might be a hygiene kit and that type of thing, to include potentially tents and sleeping bags. So I would expect that, like I said, my hope is that the social navigators coordinate, cooperate, and collaborate and try to resolve people's long-term needs. So while they may need a tent for a short period of time, we would hope that eventually Serenity House and some of the other housing folks like OLECAP can find them better housing. So again, I mean, these are not easy issues, and some folks in our community need social services, and frankly, it benefits us that they get them.
Okay. Next question, will additional law enforcement officers be hired if criminal activity increases? And if so, will that be at the expense of Sequim citizens?
Yeah, you know, I don't know that I can play the what if game. The fact is the police department has been using a mechanism to kind of calculate staffing. And if you go to our strategic plan, which is on our website, you can kind of see some graphs and some metrics that we use to calculate a need for a growth in staffing. So like I talked about yesterday, for an individual business or entity to in and of itself cause such a dramatic increase in activity that we would need to add another officer, that number would have to be fairly dramatic. But over time, our city's growing. If you've learned anything about the city of Sequim, our city continues to grow and grow and grow and grow. The community surrounding Sequim continues to grow and grow and grow. So our agency has been growing over the last 30 years in response to that growth. So I would have I can't what if the game, you know, are we talking 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 years? Chances are by the time we get to the 4 and 5 year mark, the city's going to have grown enough to potentially justify an additional position already.
Okay, we're down to the final 5. Does Sequim Police Department respond to complaints at all of the tribe's other businesses, or just to the clinic on 5th? Or not those other businesses either in Carlsberg or Blinn, and thus out of SPD's response area?
So clearly, the tribe must have a host of businesses. Only a portion of that are probably in the city. We do not have any kind of notable response to anything within the city. We sometimes assist the county going out to the casino, but that's actually a fairly rare occurrence in the scheme of things. So I guess what they're getting at is, no, clearly we are not ahead of the jurisdiction of most of the tribe's holdings.
When the police respond to a shoplifting call and they apprehend the shoplifter, do they ask why the person shoplifted? And if so, does the police department document that? I think that kind of goes to my monitoring question before.
Yeah, you know, we don't have a long questionnaire that we go through checking the boxes, you know, trying to determine people's motivations. But I can tell you that this is a fairly small town, and we start to see the same people over and over again. We do talk and interview folks when we arrest them. We do learn things when we do that, and we are constantly trying to figure out, you know, I mean, in order to investigate drug activity in our community, we need to know who's using drugs, where they're getting it, what kind of drugs they're using, and how do we, you know, how is it best that we can use that information to get to the root of drug dealers and try to eliminate that source. So we are asking those questions. Are we doing it with the intent of casting blame to the individual clinics that are treating them? No, we do not do that. So we may not ask them specifically what treatment provider that, we're not going to get into that level of detail, but we are asking drug related questions typically, or at least
Okay.
we're looking for drug related information.
Next question. The police chief reports that police chiefs in towns such as Aberdeen have not seen patients from outlying areas move to their town to be closer to treatment. If MAP patients do not have an incentive to reside closer to the treatment facility, how do you explain this? The Newmomish tribes plan to build housing near their facility, specifically for their MAP patients.
I have very little information about this Newmomish's plan, so I can't even speak to that.
Let's see. Chief Crane, does the City of Sequim Police Department receive any type of funding from the tribe or any type of vehicles or anything of that nature?
No, the only thing that we get from the tribe is based on a compact that was initiated and developed when the casino came into existence, which was probably 20 years ago. And that compact requires the tribe to pay out to impacted services. So the City of Sequim gets, I don't know if the number is $2,000 a year or $6,000 a year. It's a fairly small amount. We get basically the same amount of money every year. And that is based on the compact that was required, I believe, by the state of Washington. If you know anything about city budgets, you'll know that revenue goes into this revenue pot, never to be seen by anybody. So it has no tangible impact on police businesses, and it is certainly not anything that I pay any attention to in any way, shape, or form.
Okay. Next question. These just came in now. In your review of the other MAP clinics, did they serve a regional base or just a local one? I think their point being that this one is designed, the proposed one is designed to operate regionally, and maybe the other ones were just for their own close communities. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, no, I think I actually explained the opposite. Kelso was pulling from multiple counties. The Dijwalik sends shuttles out to go pick up people at quite a distance throughout, I believe is it Skagit County that they reside in? Aberdeen is known by us to be a clinic that people go to from Clallam County. That's something I've known people go down to Aberdeen for that. So I can't speak for East Wenatchee other than East Wenatchee is very rural, just like we are, and they do pull from smaller communities like Waterville, but that isn't a particular question that I remember asking or getting an answer from Chief Robbins about. But specifically, many of those chiefs that I spoke with, and you can see it in my writings, specifically said that they were pulling from a larger area than just their local community.
Okay. Next question is, does the city pay the county for the use of the jail?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Next question is, what if there does happen to be an explosion of crime from this project? Is there a plan B to deal with that?
Well, I think first and foremost, I would write, in addition to trying to write and analyze and kind of figure out what the problem is and where that's coming from. Like any business in town, I would want to work with the clinic to, work through those issues and see what we could address. So that's where we would certainly start.
Okay. And I think you might have answered this at least a little bit on the next question. Can you explain how Suboxone strips gets in the hands of drug dealers here in Clallam County?
Yeah, I think I did my best to explain that. I certainly can't explain every instance of everything.
Right.
In general, I think I answered that question.
Okay, let's see. Let's see, do you have any records available for the public breaking down the age distribution of opioid addiction related incidents, either through the police or sheriffs? Does the fire department or EMTs keep such records?
Well, I certainly can't speak for the fire department. We probably have some capacity to go into our data and look at who may have been arrested for a opioid related crime and then give an age for that. We probably could figure that out. It would take a little bit of time. To go in more depth would be a little, I mean, it would be very awkward to try and figure out who may have been, who may be addicted to opioid and then turn around and do something. And what is that something? So that might be an awkward data related thing to actually produce. But when it comes to arrest, clearly we would be able to figure that out.
What would happen if Matt dropouts loitered in the downtown corridor?
It is a free country.
Yeah.
So the fact is, the transportation plan, right? They're supposed to arrive there and then leave there the same way that they came. You have to work with the business to come up with a business plan, an operational plan to try to address as many as the foreseeable problems as you can come up with. And this is certainly a foreseeable problem. And I think that they've done their best to try to address it. So the what if question, what if, I mean, they know the answer as well as I do. This is a free country. If somebody wants to walk down the street and go shop at McDonald's and Walmart, they're going to go shop at McDonald's and Walmart. They're going to sit on a bench in front of, and in front of a business, they're going to do that. So we deal with criminal behavior. And unless it is criminal behavior, this is America and you have the right to walk up and down our city streets.
Okay. Next question is kind of a lengthy one about traffic impacts. Are you in a position to address the traffic impacts of the clinic at all, or?
Certainly not to the extent that a traffic engineer could, and I would hope
Okay,
that you
yeah,
don't
yeah, I think
necessarily need
that's
to go there.
kind of outside the scope of your testimony. Let's
Right.
see. Let's see. Isn't it true that per the Boise decision, homeless must be allowed to reside in public places and can't be arrested or made to leave without providing them an alternative place to go? Does the city have plans to implement a homeless encampment site?
That's a very long question, so I will try to work my way through it. And if I don't get it, I'll please, ask it again. So yes, there are a great deal of restrictions and processes that we have to make sure that we follow and adhere to due to court rulings, right? The fact is people have the right to do things. And if that includes, being out in the world homeless, then we don't have the right to arrest somebody for being homeless. So the criminal enforcement aspect isn't one at our instantaneous disposal. So you have to go through a process essentially of kind of documenting a trespass, and you have to work on essentially you would be following an eviction type process, right? And I think you probably are aware that evictions are a civil legal process. So the answer is yes, it is not a simple problem to solve when somebody decides to put a tent up someplace or put a sleeping bag down someplace. We have to work with, we have some work to do in order to address something that's actually a nuisance problem. The city, I believe, has no intention of coming up with an encampment, an intentional formal encampment. So we're, like I said, we're continuing to work on our codes so that we have all the tools in our toolbox to address these issues as we can. But I would also say, right, enforcement's only part of your toolbox. Having resources on the other side is a big part of what we're trying to do to reduce these numbers. And I would also throw out there, just because life is not easy and simple, housing in Sequim is a problem. It is hard to find a rental. It is hard to find an affordable rental. So, right, you throw in that third component of how do you deal with the housing problem, and you can even go on to employment. So I'm not experts in all of those areas, but trying to assume that law enforcement can fix all of these social problems, that's not the way the world works. We're going to have to address them as a society in all those other ways too. But trust me, we will do our part to keep the city in a good spot, but it takes effort by all of us.
Okay. The next one might involve a long answer from you. How is police stop arrest information collated for any kind of process improvement, whether for police or other service agencies?
Okay, that's a fairly general thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, as part of our annual report process, we are collating data and then using that data to see what it tells us. We also practice community-oriented policing and problem-oriented policing. So we are looking at data on a monthly basis, really, to try and figure out where can we best put our resources. If you're talking about kind of internal improvement, are we staffed appropriately? Do we have the right people in the right positions? I would say that yes, we probably do that type of analysis, at least on an annual basis when we go into our budgeting. We're constantly looking at, are we, do we have the right number of detectives versus patrol staff, that type of thing. So I don't know if I answered that question, but yeah, we're always looking to improve ourselves, and we have oodles of data that we can look at in order to determine where we can go with those things. So I don't know if I answered that question or not, but I tried.
Okay. Oh, no, that's fine. I guess, is it safe to say you're not concerned about the potential negative impacts of this MAT clinic?
I would say that it's fair to say that I don't think that the impacts from this clinic are going to, be of any dramatic effect that it's going to negatively impact our ability to provide services at all. So I would not say that it's not going to have any impact at all, because I wouldn't know that, but I don't see anything that suggests that it's going to have a significant impact.
All right, 2 final questions. Does the police department have any ability to sanction the tribe for any nuisance in view of the tribe's sovereign immunity?
I imagine that we would use our nuisance code to try to enforce anything that we needed to enforce. I guess I would have to defer to the attorneys as to whether or not we could write them a ticket. But honestly, like most businesses in town, we're not looking to write them a ticket. We're trying to get some compliance. So I would expect voluntary compliance, and I think we're usually pretty good at getting it.
Okay, all right. And last question, can you give a quick description of the things the police department does to pass out information regarding services available to those in need of services?
Right, yeah. So we have, each of our officers has envelopes that contain a bunch of information about social services in Clallam County that they can hand out to anybody who might need it. We certainly have access to all of the phone numbers and who does what to whom that we are able to give out to anybody. We have the emergency fund that allows us to, provide emergency housing or something like that. We have contact numbers. So I mean, we actually have a great deal of information that we pass out to folks, and we have working relationships with all of those entity and resource groups.
Okay, thank you, Chief Crane, for bearing through all those. Now, finally, we have Mr. Spence. If there are any questions left that you can ask, I don't know, but go ahead.
Just not as many as you might think, courtesy of this Q&A tool.
Yeah.
So, hello, Chief. My name is Mike Spence. I'm the attorney for Save Our Sequim. I would, first, I'd like to clarify a couple of things you said yesterday. One, if I believe you said 3% of the population causes the problems. I believe that was your quote. So 3% of the population of Sequim are the ones who commit most of the crimes. Was that correct?
In general, they have general, I mean, it's just kind of a general thing that 3 to 5% of the population anywhere, is probably going to, be part of that criminal element, problem element. So it's, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't, right? That's just kind of a general criminal justice thing.
Gotcha. You don't track that individually for Sequim.
No.
So, for example, you don't total up the number of criminals, the number of people who engage in criminal conduct, and compare that to the population.
No.
I take it. Of that, say 3 to 5%, and then you may not be able to answer this next question, actually. Of that 3 to 5%, do you have an idea what percentage of those might be drug addicts?
The answer is no, but I would say that the vast majority of crimes such as theft, burglary, those types of things are generally drug related.
Can you clarify vast majority a little bit, maybe?
Yeah, so I mean, people, this is typically what happens. You know, you have a drug habit, you can't afford, you've lost your job, you can't afford to get the drugs, and you steal to support your habit. That's not an atypical scenario, and it does happen.
Okay. So setting aside all the mitigations and everything that we've been talking about, if more drug addicts come to town, doesn't it logically follow that there will be more crime?
Yeah, you know, that's a really interesting question and theory because, right, you kind of have two sides to this. If you're trying to treat them and you're reducing the number of addicts, and so you might be bringing in a few people that fail, that at best that number may even out, but in reality, I think we in the criminal justice system would love for more people to get treatment, and you would slowly be reducing those numbers. So, you know, I get where you're saying, but I think it's an interesting thing. And how would you be able to do that math? Because you're reducing the number at the same time that maybe you're bringing in a few people that fail. Does that completely offset? Where is that? I don't know where that magic number is. I don't know that we can do that math.
Well, I mean, my question, maybe you didn't hear all my question. It really was setting all of the mitigations aside. So really just pure mathematics. If more drug addicts come to town, doesn't it follow that there will be more crime?
No, I don't think your math is simple. I disagree with your math being simple.
Well, let's just say this thing isn't built, but more drug addicts come to town. Wouldn't that necessarily mean more crime?
Aren't we in that position right now?
Well,
I don't know how to answer that. The fact is, SQUIM's sitting here right now with what treatment is available right now, and we're not being inundated. We have people that come into, right? We have people who are addicted that come in and do things, and then they run off to treatment, and they maybe we don't hear from them for a while, and then maybe they fall off the wagon and they come back into our system and we see them again. We have names that we know that disappear and then they come back. I don't know how to do that math for you. I don't see, we have ebbs and flows, but I don't know how to answer the what if when your supposition is actually existing right now. So again, I would say in general, the criminal justice system is benefited by effective treatment opportunities. And the more of them that we have, the better off we are.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
It's just my simple question though, is 250 more people come to town. If 3 to 5% of that population, whoever they are, come to town, wouldn't that necessarily follow that there would be more crime?
Mr. Examiner, the city objects. He's asked this question, what, 3 or 4 times now, and the chief has answered to the best of her ability each time, asked and answered.
Well, this is a slightly different angle. I'll allow it one more time. Chief,
So
yeah.
our city is growing. Our city grows by hundreds of occupants every year. And a lot of those people are people who retire here, people come here for business, maybe people who don't. So yes, as we have been growing, I wouldn't say that our crime picture has really grown. If you look at our statistics, A lot of the things are very stable. Our calls for service have grown along with our population growth. So in general, some increases in police services happen over time as a community grows. But that's happening today. It happened last year. It happened the year before. It'll happen next year.
Okay. I think you also said yesterday, and I believe this is also in your letter to the city, you associate about 23 calls per year with the existing clinic on Fifth Avenue.
Yes.
Was that your number? Now, are those calls to the actual clinic itself?
Yes.
What about calls for conduct that might have originated at the clinic but happened somewhere else? For example, someone leaves the clinic and then something happens. Do you track those at all?
I don't know that I would have the ability to track such a thing.
Do you know how many calls you get in a year related to drug addiction? You track it by topic that way.
You and I would probably have to go through our statistics to figure out what it is that you want. So the answer is yes, we collect a lot of data, and most of that data would be able to tell us whether or not drugs were involved. But I don't know that completely answers your question.
Do you receive calls related to drug addiction that aren't connected to the Fifth Avenue clinic?
I would assume so.
Do you know how many?
I mean, your question's a little bit vague because you talk about drug addiction. So if we respond to a theft call, that may or may not be connected to drug addiction until we did a little bit of investigation. So we often respond to people who we know are struggling with addiction, and we may respond to a call for, they're having an argument with their neighbor. So I don't know to what extent you want to extrapolate, whether or not we're responding to calls for drug addiction and what number that would be, I guess. So I don't know how to answer your question, I guess is what I'm saying.
It doesn't sound like you track it based on that. So is it fair to say that you receive calls related to drug addiction that don't originate from the Fifth Avenue clinic?
Yes.
Okay, and so you don't have an idea of what percentage those might be. And I realize there's a wide range of conduct related to drug addiction. But it sounds like you don't track it that way.
Track being the operative word. No, we do not track it that way. No.
Okay. Would that be helpful if you were able to do that?
Well, we can parse a lot of our data. I mean, we can go in and pull a lot of data. So really, we pull it from the aspect of what problem are we trying to solve? What question is out there that we need an answer to? We have our normal statistics that we run every year that give a nice broad view of our crime situation, right? Quality of life and crime picture. So that's data that we kind of pick every year, and it allows you to see trends and the ups and downs of things. If we had a specific problem, if we had a specific issue, we can go in and pull a great deal of data out of our system. But do we track things in the way that your question suggested? I don't know that we track them that way, no.
Okay. All right. I believe your letter says, or this might have been in some other document here. I'm sorry, it was in the letter. I'm looking at the letter you wrote, your comment letter on the MDNS conditions. I don't remember the exhibit number, but we're all looking at it yesterday.
I have one in front of me. Do you have a page number?
The pages aren't numbered, I noticed.
You see, maybe I can pull it up. No, it's not there. The Sequim Police memo you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
let me, I'll put it up on the share screen. There we go.
Thank you. So you have that letter on the bottom of page 1, very last sentence, you state, I'm referring to the Fifth Avenue Clinic. They have averaged around 130 patients per year since 2017. Patient visits at their current clinic appear to average between 60 and 100 visits per month. My understanding is that they were only allowed to see 30 patients. Their licensing allowed only 30 patients for the year 2017. So are you sure about that 130 patient number?
I'm not.
Where did you get that from?
I was using some data that the Jamestown Clinic provided me. It was kind of in an Excel spreadsheet, and I certainly don't have that right in front of me, so I don't remember exactly how it was set out. So, I don't know what to tell you other than I was, working off of data that I thought that I had been provided, and maybe it didn't tell me what I thought it told me.
Do you remember whether or not the first year was a lower number than 130?
It may have been. I honestly don't remember at this time.
Okay, I'm going to stay with this letter for a little bit longer. So you have to count the pages too. On the 4th page, you describe an interview with David Dickinson about halfway down the page. There's the paragraph right there. I describe an interview with David Dickinson, Samshire Regional Administrator in Seattle. Do you remember when you conducted that interview with him?
I don't know that I have the date. I don't know if this document is dated. So, clearly it was in that time frame that we were doing the analysis, and I was preparing for the written response for the SEPA.
Do you remember if that was before or after you visited the Dijwalik Center?
It was after.
It was after you visited it. Okay. So in your letter, you cite Mr. Dickinson is telling you that the Dijwalik Center was a state-of-the-art operation. And farther down, towards the bottom of that paragraph, Mr. Dickinson describes sort of what feels like to him the elements of a state-of-the-art operation. I'm specifically referring to the sentence that says, he suggested it requires a good site location, good building and site design, the development of good relationships with neighbors, and a good model of implementation. Regarding that first element, a good site location, did you discuss with him what constitutes a good site location?
We didn't go into any significant detail. I was definitely asking him about, I had asked him about Seattle. I mean, Seattle's got some spots where things are just not in a good way. And he was able to kind of describe the drawbacks of some of the Seattle sites, was specifically the downtown Seattle site. So that's when he commented on those things.
Do you remember if you said anything about the location of the Dijwalik Center?
No, I don't think we delved into that, no.
But at the time you had this conversation with him, you had been to the Dijwalik Center, and as you testified earlier, it's quite a ways out of town.
Sure.
That is correct?
It is correct.
So he was telling you that, what did he say was bad about the locations of some of the facilities in Seattle?
So again, that kind of went to this urban versus rural, right? If you're in a large city like Seattle, the way he described it is the downtown Seattle location, they don't have a transportation option there. People essentially walk up. And because people walk up and the facility is so, he described it as the facility is too small. So they don't have the capacity to actually have people wait inside the facility to get their appointments addressed. So they're actually waiting outside of the facility. And because people walk up there, they end up just kind of, hanging out for significant periods of time. So he talked about the fact that the site is overwhelmed. It doesn't have enough capacity. They don't have a transportation plan because really it's a walk-in type situation. And then that's when he kind of was able to articulate, kind of a better process that would lead to better outcomes.
Did he say that maybe a more rural location would be better than an urban location?
He did not say that, no.
Did it occur to you to ask him that, since you had been to the Dijwalik Center, which is located in a rural area? Did it occur to you to ask him about that distinction?
No, I did not ask him that question, no.
Why not?
I didn't know that it would be that pertinent. So, the fact is every community has location issues. The vast majority of clinics that I called on at the other communities, they were moving into pre-built facilities that they had to remodel to suit their needs. So, there's a lot that goes into site selection, and I did not get into that with him as to whether or not he wanted to grade or suggest sites. I felt that might be a little out of his purview.
Would you agree that a more urban setting for a treatment center like this would create more opportunities for improper interactions with more people?
Objection, Mr. Examiner, it's argumentative
All
and
over.
speculative.
Go ahead, Ms. Chief Crane. I'm curious about your opinion on that.
So I think that's funny, really. Seattle's urban. Sequim is not urban. There's no urban part of Sequim. We are rural to our core. We have a cute little downtown. We have a cute commercial shopping area. We are a small town. There is nothing urban about Sequim.
Well, let me rephrase my question then. Would you agree that locating a treatment center closer to a place where people gather creates more opportunity than one in a more remote setting?
So the location as proposed by the Jamestown Clinic is actually off the beaten track. If you didn't know it was there, you would not know it was there. So in that respect, it is not in a well-traveled, visible, I would use the term visible. It's not visible. If you don't know it's there, you're not going to know it's there.
Did you discuss visibility with Mr. Dickinson?
No.
Okay. I assume you're aware that this site is next to a Costco.
Yes, I'm well aware of where it's at.
And a block away from a retirement home.
Yes, I'm well aware of that.
So as opposed to the Dijwalik Center, which is nowhere near a Costco or a retirement home?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where you want me to go with that question, so I will just answer it as I think it should be answered. The fact is, if you address all of the concerns, I mean, where else would you put it? Almost every question that has ever been asked about it could be asked regardless of where it is in the city of Sequim. It's always going to be next to something. So the question is, do they have an operational plan, a design, mechanisms to deal with those impacts? There's pretty much nowhere in the city where it's not going to be touching something. Just like every other business has a neighbor and has, I mean, we have apartment complexes throughout the city. We have housing for seniors throughout the city. So I guess my valuation of its impacts was done based on the facts presented by the plan location, and that's how I viewed it.
All right, last question related to this issue. You said it has to be located next to something. If that something features more people than some other something, wouldn't you agree that the presence of more people creates more potential for trouble?
Yeah, I guess I think that might be a little too vague for me to answer. I'm not a good, I'm not a big fan of what ifs. So the fact is, I mean, I don't know how to answer that. So I don't, Seattle's a much different beast, right? Having something in downtown with a lot of people there with a large clientele, that's an easy answer to give. In a small town like Sequim, where in the world, unless you're parked in the Walmart parking lot, there's nothing in Sequim that has that many people at it, right? Unless you're in the middle of the high school property during school hours, there's just nothing in the city of Sequim that's got that many people right at it that the conflict that you are suggesting might occur. So I guess I don't know how to answer that question. I've done the best I could with it. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. Your letter, I'm on the bottom of the 4th page. You describe a phone call with Police Chief Dar Kirk of Kelso. And you're talking about a clinic there. Yeah, thank you. And were you referring to the Kelso Treatment Solutions facility located at 305 Pacific Avenue by chance?
I actually can't remember what the name of the clinic was.
Did you ask
I wish
him?
I could, but I didn't write it down clearly.
But you had, now, did you have this conversation with Chief Kirk after you talked with Mr. Dickinson?
I believe I have these in chronological order, so I believe that the answer is yes.
So Mr. Dickinson told you that a good site location is important. Did it occur to you then to discuss these good site location issue with Chief Kirk?
Yeah, the question with Chief Kirk is a different one. The clinic that moved in there moved into an existing building. So, right, they so you kind of have to deal with the hands that you're dealt. We did talk briefly about still whether or not its choice of location had any impacts, and he was involved in the process of evaluating their location, right, when they put together whatever land use process that they went through. He was part of that review. So I'm assuming that they did what they could with what they had with their process.
Would it surprise you to learn that 305 Pacific Avenue is located right next door to the Kelso Police Department?
I don't think that's the clinic, but like I said, I can't remember.
Did you look by chance on Google Maps?
I don't think that's the clinic that we were talking about, but I honestly don't remember the name. So I don't want to, I don't know how to argue. I don't want to argue that with you because I don't recall, and I wish I could, but I don't recall it being next to the police department. But you know what? I don't know.
Okay, let's go to the next page, please. You describe a phone call with Police Chief Jeff Myers of Hoquiam. And so these are in chronological order. Is that an echo or is that something?
Sounds like it stopped. Is it still going on? Okay, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, no, it's gone.
Okay.
So if these were in chronological order.
No, there it is again. Okay, so somebody is probably is has their is not muted and their computer is creating the echo. So let me see who's not muted. Everyone who's not participating right now, please mute yourself, and that should take care of the echo most likely. All right, let's see if that works now, Mr. Spence.
Hello.
Okay,
That's better. Yeah, that's so distracting sometimes.
yeah.
All right. So next, you after you spoke to Mr. Dickinson of Samsha and Chief Kirk, you then spoke with Chief Myers of Hoquiam. Is that the correct sequence?
I believe so.
Okay, and you hopefully still had the site location issue in mind when you spoke with Chief Myers. When you spoke with Chief Myers, did you discuss Evergreen Treatment Services at 804 Levy in the town of Hoquiam?
I'm sorry, could you repeat your question, please?
Was the facility you were referring to named Evergreen Treatment Services located at 804 Levy?
Yes, that was the treatment clinic. I don't recall the address.
Okay. And did you discuss site location issues with Chief Myers?
Only in the context of what impact it might have had. So I didn't ask any specifics about what it was next to, how far it was away with various things. I really just wanted to know whether they had any impacts from it.
Would it surprise you to learn that 804 Levy is located in the middle of a hospital district in the town of Hoquiam, a medical district?
Objection, assumes facts, not in evidence.
Look it up.
All right,
on
and
maps.
sustain.
Did you consider confirming the, I want to use the exact phrase, good site location? Did you consider confirming the good site location in your conversation with Chief Myers?
Objection asked and answered.
So I don't recall.
I don't believe I asked that
this
one.
Facility.
She indicated that she did not have the conversation about site location with him and what it was next to, other than it was just whether or not there was any impacts associated with it.
Okay, and she answered that question. All right, okay, then sustain then.
Okay. Next city you talked to was Arlington. And that happened afterwards. I assume you spoke with Chief Jonathan Ventura. And your letter talks about the Island Crossing facility. Did you happen to look at?
Put that clinic name in there.
Pardon me? I'm
Thank
sorry.
goodness I put that clinic name in there.
I'm sorry, still didn't hear you.
Oh, thank goodness I put the clinic name in there. I wish I'd done
That is
that for all of them.
Yes, thank you. It made my job a little easier. Did you happen to confirm the location of the Island Crossing facility?
No,
Do you know where it is?
no.
Would it surprise you to learn it's out next to I-5?
Objection, assumes facts, not in evidence.
All right, sustain.
I submit the examiner could take judicial notice of the physical location of these facilities. Last one, actually, maybe not the last one. In Aberdeen, there was some discussion of Aberdeen, and I don't think Aberdeen appears in your letter anywhere. I believe you talked about Aberdeen yesterday. We were talking about homelessness. It's coming back to me. We were talking about homelessness yesterday, and I believe you mentioned that you had had a conversation with someone in Aberdeen about the nature of homeless people. Some people stay, some are transient, and some are just plain housing insecure. Did you happen to discuss any treatment facilities with whoever you talked to in Aberdeen?
Well, I think hopefully you recall that I embarrassed myself by suggesting that I spoke with Aberdeen when I actually spoke with Hoquiam. And you may notice that I have a hard time of talking about Hoquiam. I apparently always talk about Aberdeen. So I did not talk to anybody about Aberdeen. We refer to Aberdeen, right? The bus goes to Aberdeen and a lot of people transport themselves to Aberdeen. So that's, don't tell Jeff that I said Hoquiam, I said Aberdeen when he actually works for Hoquiam. He may take personal offense, but I apologize for any misunderstanding.
It's sort of like Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks. Could we move on then? I'd like to move on to, I believe you were online yesterday when we went through this grid that Jody Wilkie prepared, comparing the original language in the original MDNS with the stipulated settlement.
It's actually Mr. Steger's document, I believe.
Well, Jody Wilkie testified yesterday that she prepared it, I believe.
Oh, that's right, for Mr. Steger, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that document?
Only by way of sitting through hours of this hearing.
Okay, well, I'm going to refer to it if you don't mind, but really what I'm referring to are.
I'd like to see it on screen because that is not a document I have available to me to review.
Okay, I can do that, or does somebody else want to do it?
Let's see if I can. I'm looking it up right now. It's in my email, so.
This is the one advantage of Zoom. So thank you guys for putting the documents up on the screen for me.
There are many advantages to Zoom, commute-wise.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the email he sent with that attachment. Oh, here it is, I think. Okay, great. Yeah, I have it. Okay, almost there. Okay. There we go.
There we go. Thank you. So if we could go down to section 3 at the bottom of the page, the original MDNS provided for a community response plan. The language specifically says community response plan as conditions of operation for the proposed outpatient clinic. Does a community response plan sound like a good idea to you?
When I was reviewing all of the material, I took the community response plan, I apparently as Mr. Somkowski intended it, as a kind of an operational outline and roadmap of what it is that they were going to do. The fact is it has a lot of operational things in there that I would assume that they might have to change and really isn't our business necessarily, but it was incredibly informative and helpful to know what their business plan was in order to better assess whether or not it was going to have public safety impacts. I don't know if that answered your question.
It does. And so you can see from the second column that the community response plan was stricken.
Actually, I can't see that. I don't know where we are in the document.
Yeah, you said section 3, Mr.
Section 3. Yeah.
Pardon? Yeah, because section 3 on this graph is
It says at the very bottom.
response plan. Okay, there it is. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
See it. Yeah. Right here.
So I believe you just testified that the community response plan was a good idea. Then is it fair to say that striking it, which is the second column, is not a good idea?
No, I think I said that it was very helpful to help inform me as to whether or not I thought there were going to be any public safety impacts. I don't know that I have any need of it to be a locked in stone adopted plan that becomes, a legal document. I don't know that that's necessary for what purpose I needed it for.
But so you're okay with the community response plan being stricken?
Well, as long as we have all the other mitigations, I don't see that it's necessary.
Okay. All right, let's go down to 5A, which is down at the bottom of that page. 5A, if you could scroll it down, please.
Yeah, it's right there, right? Yeah.
It's not scrolling down on my screen for some
Really?
reason.
Yeah, because I have the entire, this is 5A. Do you see my cursor, right? This is 5A thing.
No, I'm not seeing anything moving. I
It's
take
locked
back
on
what
my
I just
screen
said about
too.
Zoom.
Yeah, Ms. Crane, can you see it?
No, it's locked on my screen as well.
Yeah, okay.
There's no movement. Your
Huh.
cursor's not moving either.
Okay, let me, I'll reshare. Maybe that'll work.
I take back part of what I just said about Zoom.
Yeah, really.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
good.
All right. So 5A, the original condition, the condition in general calls for the formation of a community advisory committee. And the original version contained health professionals, community-based organizations, elected leaders, and public safety officials. Do you see that language on the left column of 5A?
I do see that.
Yeah. Now, there's been the substitute condition starts with a more detailed description, and it says the committee contains 8 members, inclusive of the director of health services for the tribe. That's Mr. Simkowski, I believe. City manager, Mr. Bush, Mr. Berezowski, the planning director, the Clallam County sheriff, you, a tribal council member, a city council member, and 8, a member of the health field with experience. So what's missing, what was taken away, was community-based organizations. Do you think it's
Objection,
better?
misleading. We went through this yesterday and it says where does it say? Recommended committee size is no more than 8 members inclusive of.
Correct.
Yeah.
I
All right.
I just have a generic question. Do you think it's a good thing to have community-based organizations on an advisory committee to this project?
I would think that would depend and probably be a part of what the committee might want to consider. So for example, would it be valuable to have a Girl Scouts representative on the committee? Probably not. So I think it being relevant, I think is probably helpful. And somebody having a background in the social services area is probably helpful. So I mean, the language talks about recommended and it talks about, so I don't have any particular issues with the language as it is.
Well, please forgive me for sounding flip here, but you're responsible for the safety of the community. Wouldn't you think then you would like to hear from the community?
Objection.
this project?
argumentative.
But Ms. Nelson Gross, what's the objection?
Sorry, he is being argumentative.
Uh-oh. My screen just went totally black.
Oh,
Oh, crap.
I can still see you and hear you though.
okay, all right.
So can I?
Yeah, I mean, the question was phrased in an argumentative fashion, but I think our Chief Crane, if you could answer the substance of it.
I'll withdraw the first part of that question.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So what I would suggest is if people know who's on the committee, they can certainly come to us. People have not been shy about coming to the city manager, the director of DCD, or the sheriff, or myself. So I am often the recipient of people expressing their concerns or complaints. So I think there's a couple different mechanisms for the public to be heard if they have issues and concerns.
But you don't think it's appropriate to have them on this committee, it sounds like.
Well, I certainly don't think I'm the sole determinant of what's on the committee or not. So I don't think I should be the only one to make that decision. And I certainly see the value of having somebody who has knowledge of the issues being discussed or evaluated. my example may sound flippant to you, but again, I think it's just as valuable. You wouldn't want a Girl Scout, for example, on the committee. So I think relevance means something.
Okay. Let's go to 5B. The original language says that prior to occupancy, this committee will develop a contingency plan that fully identifies potential courses of action and any corrective measures to be taken. The amendment only says that they will comment on the tribe's policies and procedures regarding operation of the clinic. It removes the requirement for a contingency plan and corrective measures. As the person responsible for the safety of the public, are you okay with that removal?
So we only have so much, ability to comment and have any kind of power over how they run their business. So, I mean, certainly this change is a wordsmith that is more appropriate to a role. I would submit that the DEA and the other licensing bodies have a much bigger role in working with the clinic to determine any type of specific contingency plans. So if you're talking, let's like kind of play this out a little bit. If you want to talk about contingency plans on what might happen, then I think that committee up above is in a better position to actually address things that may happen in the future that you don't know what they are right now. So yes, I'm content with the language.
Do you, to be okay with that language, you must, do you believe that the tribes, the mitigation that the tribe has agreed to with the city address any potential concerns with 100% certainty?
Nothing in life is 100% certainty. So I no.
So in other words, you think it's possible that something could go wrong?
No, actually, I'm just agreeing with you that nothing in life is 100% certain.
I mean, this is, there's been a lot of testimony about this. This is innovative and creative, and, you know, it's not, you know, this is new and not the traditional method for treating opioid use disorder. So it being new and innovative and maybe a little bit experimental, are you open to considering the possibility that we haven't covered everything in this mitigation plan?
Everything
Or are you not?
Everything that I read and reviewed suggests that the operational plan, the wraparound services, is improvements on other deliveries. The clinics that I called on, almost all of them, right, with the exception of Dijwalik, are a lesser than version of this clinic. So I guess I would disagree with your question.
So do you believe that a written commitment to take corrective measures in the event something is not as anticipated, do you believe that that is beneficial or unnecessary?
Objection. Ms. Crane already testified that she is satisfied with the wordsmithing that is in the stipulated agreement. Asked and answered.
All right, sustained.
Okay. Hang on, I'm having more computer issues. 5E, down on the next page. 5E, the original condition says the tribe will enter into a good neighbor agreement with the city. And then there were some examples that was stricken. Do you believe that a good neighbor agreement would be helpful to you in the performance of your duties as police chief, or is that unnecessary?
Yeah, so the good neighbor agreements that some of the other communities entered into were agreements outside of the SEPA approval process. Most of the issues, if not all of them, if I remember correctly, are actually in this agreement. So it's really superfluous.
Going down to 5G. 5G is, the original condition said, prior to occupancy, they will develop a plan acceptable to the city regarding ramping up of patient care during the first year. That has been removed. And you're okay with that too?
Yeah, it's their business operation plan. I don't know that I have any expertise to suggest that that's necessary or unnecessary.
Could it also mean, though, ramping up its relationship with the city and the public? Is that also part of ramping up, or don't you read it that way?
I don't read it that way.
Okay, do you agree that it would be a good thing to sort of assess how this thing is doing in the first year to make sure we're not missing anything?
And I believe that probably is what the committee would be working with the clinic on.
Okay. 5N. The original condition is the tribe will strictly enforce and no loitering policies through on-site security. And that's been limited to, in the revised condition, through during business hours. In your experience, do crimes occur mainly during business hours, or do they occur off hours?
Either.
Do you track crime statistics by time of day?
We certainly can, absolutely.
Would you agree that not having security after hours is a potential security risk?
One that could be mitigated.
How?
Security cameras, good lighting. Having a security system that's actually monitored by a security company.
All right, 5O. 5O, big long condition, the substance of which the on-site clinic security would make community sweeps during some schedule. And the community sweeps portion of that has been removed. Do you think that's a good idea?
You know, I always thought that would be a bit awkward to have security individuals kind of wandering around looking. I just thought that might cause as much consternation as not having them. So I don't know that I have any. I certainly have no fears for that language being stricken.
How so? How is that awkward? I'm not clear on how that's awkward.
Well, you know, security guys wearing big security, wandering around parking lots and things like that. I think that could probably draw attention in an interesting way, and might actually result in as many calls to law enforcement being concerned about their presence as anything else. So, right, assuming that there might be a problem. So, like I said, I mean, in and of itself, I don't know that the sweeps, you know, whether they're there or not, concern me from a law enforcement perspective.
So, I mean, this is what people always refer to as rent-a-cops. Are rent-a-cops in general not helpful? Is that sort of what you're saying?
Oh, no, I'm not trying to disparage that whatsoever. But the fact is, in this community, if someone attired as a security person were to wander through the Costco parking lot, we're probably going to get as many calls from citizens wondering whether or not they should worry about that, and not because of that individual, but whether, you know, what they're looking for. So, you know, that was my only point.
But at the same time, doesn't that deter potential crime?
Well, their job is, I mean, I don't know what you think about them. I don't know that they should, you know, be deterring crime on other people's property, but that's not my role to suggest. But what I would say is that if the security plan on site, if their operational plan on site is to know where their patients are and how they're getting there and how they're leaving, then their social worker, their staff should know where their patients are. So what is the need to have somebody wander around looking for something that they would already know did or did not exist? And if they had a concern, they can call us. If they have a worry, they should call us and we would be responsive.
So you're okay to a call from a navigator, but not about a rent-a-cop, it sounds like.
Well, one has an actual, right, an actual thing to worry about versus the other one creating calls that wouldn't be needed.
Okay. All right. I do not have any more questions at this
Okay.
moment. I might have some on in rebuttal. My
Okay,
screen-
let's take our break then till 10:50, and at that point we can go back to city and tribe redirect, and then from there move on to public comment. So we'll see you in 15 minutes.
Thanks.
Okay, it's 10 to 11 a.m. November 19th, 2020. We're back on the record on CDR 20-001, the S'Klallam Tribe appeal of the SEPA mitigated determination of non-significance for the Matt Clinic proposal. We just wrapped up the cross-examination of Chief Crane and are back on redirect. And at this point, we can move on to Ms. Nelson Gross for the redirect, if any.
I'm okay there. Hopefully my video comes
Oh,
in now.
you're muted, Ms. Nelson Gross.
Is it working now?
I
Yes.
can hear
Or
you.
is that me?
Okay.
Hold on a second. That's me again. I apologize. Keep my volume up. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I expect this to be relatively brief. So, Chief Crane, were you given the opportunity to review the terms of the stipulated settlement with the tribe?
Yes, I was.
Do you have any concerns that would prevent you from agreeing with, do you have any concerns that give you pause for agreeing with the stipulated settlement conditions?
No, I don't.
Do you have any specific concerns that have not been addressed in this stipulated agreement?
No.
With respect to security, you indicated in your testimony with Mr. Spence that it might be a little bit awkward to have neighborhood sweeps by the clinic's security members. Do you remember that testimony?
I do.
Generally, are people allowed to wander onto other people's property without their permission?
So in public spaces, they can wander. So for example, they could wander through the Costco parking lot and that type of thing, but they're not going to be able to wander onto other people's private property, I would assume, unless they had permission from that property owner.
Such as the neighborhood sweeps that were in the original revised mitigated conditions.
Well, certainly that language was pretty broad, so it maybe suggested things that couldn't or shouldn't happen.
Okay, and so was it those types of things that you were referring to when you mentioned that it was probably awkward?
That's certainly part of it, yeah.
Okay. With that, I don't think I have any other questions for you, Chief Crane. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Murphy, did you have any redirect?
Nothing from the tribe.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Well, Chief Crane, thank you for your testimony. Really appreciate you going through all of that, and especially since it took several days, and your testimony was very helpful. Appreciate your clarifications on this case. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Now you're moving on to, I believe, unless the attorneys had something else in mind, we're moving on to public comment. Is that right?
Well, Mr. Olbrechts, I understand that Mr. Spence has a hard stop at noon, and I think there may be some logistic issues that we would typically address at the end of the day. And perhaps it's
Okay.
better to address them now so that we can go all the way to noon.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. The one issue was the closing, I think. I mean, do the attorneys know if they want to do these verbally or in writing at this point?
The tribe would prefer to offer a closing argument at the hearing and not do post-hearing briefing.
Okay. All right. Ms.
I
Nelson
agree.
Gross? Okay.
The city concurs.
Okay. Yeah. Especially since we have a couple days to prepare for that. That'll work. Were there any other final issues, Mr. Murphy, you wanted to address at this time?
Yes, I have two other issues. One is what to do with Wendy Goldberg's expert comment letter, considering that she will not be subject to cross-examination.
Okay. Yeah. And as I mentioned, I think on the day that she said she wasn't going to testify, that the attorneys may object and say they wanted her to be present for cross-examination. Are you requesting her to be subject to cross-examination then, or?
Yes, we disagree strongly with her interpretation of those sources and the reliability of those sources, and so we do need to scrutinize them on the record.
Okay. All right. Is Ms. Goldberg there? Let me check if I can figure that out. Or Mr. Spence, do you know if she's attending today?
I do not. I don't see any reason we can't convert her letter to a public comment, however.
Yeah, well, yeah, she's presented a lot of, I mean, she's characterized herself as an expert witness and is referring to numerous studies. You know, and any technical testimony is subject to cross-examination under the Crowbuck case. So, I mean, I think she really does have the choice either of having the document admitted or being subject to questioning on it. So, this hearing is being continued until Tuesday. So if she's not here today, I think I can email her and let her know, give her the option of one or the other for Tuesday then. And if she, for whatever reason, has a schedule conflict, we'll figure out a way to get her in there, but it'll be one or the other. So what else, Mr. Murphy, do you have?
My final question is whether there's a opportunity for us to get copies of the recordings of the hearing so that we can review the record to prepare for our closings.
And I'll ask Mr. Anthony. Mr. Anthony, do you can you respond to that question? I know generally it's pretty easy to give out a link for the Zoom recording, but the hearing this large, I don't know if that's a challenge or not. Mr. Martin, you there? Oh, there he is. Okay.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm sorry. The recordings we have and been giving and pulling off of the web and giving over to our legal department. I see no reason why we wouldn't be able to share them, but I'm going to have to leave that to them to be able to state how that should be shared.
Okay. All right. And Ms. Nelson Gross, there's no problem just emailing the links then to people, is there?
You know, if Anthony is able to get them to us quickly, I don't see any reason, frankly, why we couldn't put them on the website with all of the other links to the documents. I mean, if people prefer to have us email them out, I can do that as well. But Talina or Anthony, is there any reason why we can't post these links to the recordings on the webpage?
I can work with your.
And we can post them on the website. That would probably be easiest. I think some of them might exceed the size limit for email. And I email everybody the link to the website so they have it.
Okay, so Talina, to be clear, you will post the links of the recordings from this hearing on the Mac Clinic website, and then you will send the link to that website to the panelists on this hearing. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is that satisfactory to everybody?
It is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Examiner, can I show what was the case you cited? I'm sorry, I didn't hear your site.
Crowbuck versus Snohomish County.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Right.
So I have one additional question. Sorry, forgot my video. If I may, Mr. Examiner. Mr. Murphy, were you done asking your questions?
I am. Those are my issues. Thank you.
Okay. Could you clarify for me the remaining role that Mr. Spence is going to have? It was my understanding that he was cross-examining city and tribal witnesses. And then now we're hearing that he's giving a closing argument. Could you just give me a sense of what the expected participation is?
I think that's the last of it, is a cross-examination, the closing statement. Mr. Spence, were you expecting anything else or wanting anything else at this point?
No, I'm just going to be listening from here on in.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just asking because earlier there was the discussion about objecting to public comment. And to me, that seems outside the scope of cross-examination and closing argument.
Yeah, and Mr. Spence, that's were you anticipating doing that or not?
I objecting to public comment. I will just monitor it. I guess I won't object to any public comment.
Okay.
So does it stand to reason that we could continue? And I'm just trying to think of judicial economy and expediency, and then save the rest for perhaps on Tuesday when Mr. Spence is available for rebuttals from the city and the tribe and other things.
That would prejudice me because my hard stop is noon. And if you continue on past my hard stop, I will not have had the opportunity to hear all the public comment.
Okay. Well, and as I mentioned, I think that the city could give you the link to the hearing, Mr. Spence, and then you could listen to it tomorrow or the weekend or something, or Monday.
I don't, as long as I have, then how would you, for closing arguments, how would I be notified of closing arguments?
I
We could
don't, I don't expect we would be having them today.
Yeah, we just say we won't do closing today. We'll do that on Tuesday. And then I'd certainly, let you know if we actually got done with the public comments today, we would just start at 9 o'clock on Tuesday doing the closing.
Okay.
The attorneys want time to prepare their closing anyway, so.
And
Sure,
I'd also
that-
note that we do anticipate calling at least one rebuttal witness, and I think it would make sense to delay that until Tuesday when Mr. Spence is available.
Okay. Would that work, Mr. Spence, or not?
Are you going to disclose who the rebuttal witness is?
It has been disclosed. It's Paul Cunningham.
Okay.
Which is also posted on the city's website, the link where all of the documents are located.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so, all right, so we'll do as much public comment as we can today. No rebuttal witnesses until Tuesday, and closing will be on Tuesday as well. And Mr. Martin, you'll be able to have the link to today's, how soon can you get the link to today's hearing posted?
Pardon me, it typically takes a little while for this video to continue processing. As soon as that's ready, I think in the past it's been about an hour after the closure of the meeting.
Oh, okay.
I can get that file over to our legal office, and I'll work with them to how best to get those shared.
Okay, so it'll be posted by tomorrow, most likely, sometime during the day at the latest. Okay, all right.
Very likely.
Sounds good. Okay, so we'll move on then as far as we can go today, short of the rebuttal and the closing. Sounds good. All right, so I think now we are ready finally to get into the public comment, and just a few preliminary comments. As was mentioned in the hearing notice, we're giving out 3-minute time, excuse me, having trouble speaking now. 3-minute time limit for each member of the public to speak. I'll tell you technically what's relevant to this. I mean, when you get to the public comment portion of a hearing, people are usually pretty flexible about how far they can go. The attorneys are, could still object. They often don't though, because we realize this is public comment. This is the appeal that we have today is an appeal that was filed by the tribe contesting that the mitigation measures placed by the city were too restrictive. Okay, so the only issue before me in this appeal is, were those regulations too restrictive, and does the settlement agreement that the tribe and the city agreed upon do the reduction in those mitigation measures, does that still cover the impacts that were covered by the original mitigation measures? So as I said, that's maybe a little too technical for some of you, and that's fine. It's my job to kind of translate your concerns into what's relevant to this appeal. So I don't think the attorneys or myself are going to be too pushy about what you say, as long as it's related to the impacts of this proposal. But if you're really concerned about what comments you make are going to be the most effective, it's going to be those that directly address whether the settlement agreement covers impacts as well as the original mitigation measures. That's really what I'm looking at and focusing on most exclusively here. Also, and I'm sure most of you probably haven't read the hundreds of pages of briefing that's been involved in this case, but the law is fairly clear, and it's been cited, I think, a few times by the tribe and the city, that these permit hearings aren't they're not popularity contests. They're not votes on whether the projects should go or not. The courts expect and require that when we're dealing with a permit application, the only consideration is, are the permit review criteria being met or not? It's not an issue of how many people are opposed to the project. The number of people opposed to a project can give you a gauge of how severe, the impacts of a project may be. But beyond that, it's just, you know, from a court perspective, it's not pertinent. In fact, the biggest liability cases we've had in the last decade or two, a couple cases actually, both over $10 million, where a jury was convinced, or, you know, led to believe essentially that a permitting decision was based on political considerations, on making the constituency happy, as opposed to basing the decision on permit criteria. And what the courts do in a case like that is they allow a jury to award massive jury verdicts, and then they invalidate the decision and make you go out and approve it anyway. So it's kind of a fruitless enterprise to just say we're all opposed to it. I understand that fully. And I know this is very important to the community, and that's why I'm spending you know, an inordinate amount of time and be going through all the evidence to, you know, to make sure that the impacts are fully mitigated. But what's important here is, you know, what impacts this has on the community. And you know, what's not important is just to repeat what everyone said in your 3 minutes. All you have to do, if that's your goal, is just say, I agree with what Jody Wilkes said. And you know, your point will be made at that point then. I mean, to just repeat things that have been said before just delays the opportunity for other people to be able to speak today. And I'm sure you're all, you know, you've been waiting through this for a very long time. And you know, I just want to get to the new ideas, new concerns, and new angles and perspectives that people have on the impacts of this project. Otherwise, like I said, just say you agree with what other people have said, and hope that you know, we make the proper decision here. So I'm going to start first with there was someone who had emailed the city yesterday, said she has to go to work at noon, and that was Ann Hemingway. So let's start with her. Get her up on there she is, very first one. Anthony, is she, she's unmuted, right, at this point?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, this is Talina. I did unmute her.
Okay, Miss Henninger, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
All right, perfect. And were you sworn in at the beginning of this hearing?
I was on Monday, yes.
Okay, all right, you're still sworn in, so you can go ahead and make your comments at this point.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Hearing Examiner Ulbrichts. My name is Anne Marie Henninger, and I reside at 425 North Sunnyside Avenue in the city limits of Sequim, Washington. I have lived in the Sequim zip code since 1996, and I moved into the city limits 18 months ago. I am also a registered nurse. Thank you for allowing me to voice my public comments as a private citizen of Sequim. In 2019, when I first heard of the Jamestown MAT Clinic, my initial response was a reactive, no way. Being a healthcare professional and committed to lifelong learning, however, I knew a visceral response was no way to make an informed decision, so I began to research. My investigation led me to the data and evidence supporting medicine-assisted treatment as the gold standard for treatment of OUD. I was impressed to read not only the quality of the research studies behind this treatment method, but also the quantity of evidence showing success and transformation for patients using opioid treatment program MAT. I was honored to be able to spend a day at the Deej Walich Wellness Center in Anacortes, operated by the Swinomish tribe. I was so impressed with the facility, staff, program, education, success rates, and opportunities offered. I was also impacted by the lack of negative effects on public service providers. Through my months of research and interviews, and based on the facts at hand, my mind was changed, and I fully support this clinic, which will not only treat citizens' addiction issues, but will also diagnose and treat co-occurring brain and physical health disorders, implementing trauma-informed care. Our community, Sequim, needs more treatment options for people with opioid addiction. Outpatient MAT works well for some patients, but many others need the daily check-in and wraparound integrated care model offered by the Jamestown MAT through their opioid treatment program clinic. I have always been impressed with the manner in which the tribe has operated businesses here in Clallam County. I expect the same high level of professionalism with this MAT clinic. I also appreciate that Jamestown has volunteered CEPA conditions, even though this project won't cause adverse environmental impacts. The conditions the tribe has volunteered go above and beyond which would be required of any other clinic. I would like to take a moment to publicly assert my support for all of our local public service providers here in Sequim, including law enforcement, for the fine work that they do. Save Our Sequim does not speak for me. all these mitigation efforts are satisfactory and the impacts to my Sequim community will be positive and not negative in any way. I would ask you to please allow this clinic construction to begin as soon as possible. And I thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Henninger. Appreciate your testimony. All right, at this point now, I'm going to go down just the persons participating by phone, since that's a limited number. I think we have like 9 or so, somewhere around there. 11, we have 11 according to my participant thing. So those of you on phone right now who want to participate, hit *9, and then that will show me that will appear as a raised hand. Okay, I got one of the 11 so far that want to participate. 2. Okay, all right, we got a few there. All right, so I'll start off with the 360-452-7891 number. And Anthony, make sure that they're unmuted and they can go ahead and speak at this time. Looks like, okay, now it looks like you're unmuted. And who's this?
Good morning, this is Dr. Michael Maxwell.
Okay. And Dr. Maxwell, have you been sworn in? Were you sworn in at the beginning of this hearing?
I was not.
Okay, let me swear you in real quick. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this proceeding?
I do.
Okay, wonderful, great, go ahead.
Great, thanks. I'll try to be brief. Again, I'm Dr. Michael Maxwell. I'm a family physician who's been practicing in Clallam County for the past 30 years now. I serve as a CEO at North Olympic Healthcare Network here in Port Angeles. We're a federally qualified community health center here in Port Angeles. Our health center provides a wide range of primary care, dental, and behavioral health services to about 14,000 patients in our county. One of them is MAT services, medication-assisted treatment, that you heard so much about for OUD. It's worth underscoring, and it's well understood that by the medical and scientific community, that OUD is a medical disorder. It's as biologically based as other conditions like hypertension, diabetes. So I'm in full support of those prior comments. From my experience, and I know firsthand, our community has a really high prevalence of OUD and higher than state averages of death due to overdose. OUD has had a devastating impact on the community, and we know this from experience. So we were thrilled to learn that Jamestown, the tribe, was willing to step up and make the investment in the healing center that's proposed to help the community in need. It's essential to understand that, contrary to the position of the opponents, this clinic will be addressing a need that already exists in the community. It's not creating the OUD problem, it's attempting to respond to it. The opponents' comments seem to be from a fundamentally flawed position that the healing center is like a field of dreams. If they build it, and only then will the problem come. And these people with OUD are already here, part of our community. And whatever risks they pose already exist, and actually represent more risk without treatment. We need to remember, these people, by definition, are seeking treatment. And so mitigating that additional risk, it's almost counterintuitive that those risks are already here. Bringing help, doesn't, create OUD patients in our community any more than opening an umbrella, doesn't cause it to rain. So we have to, seems to be confusion between confusing the solution for the problem. The tribe has a long history of providing services in a high quality and responsive manner, and there's no reason to believe that their healing clinic will be any different. They've been great community partners, act in the community to the betterment of the community, high professional standards. There are no environmental impacts from operation of this medical clinic being built in an appropriately zoned location. And we appreciate the tribe has volunteered conditions that go above and beyond. The bottom line, the mitigation measures that are proposed in the current settlement agreement are more than adequate. It's unfortunate that a small but local group of opponents have created controversy where really none should exist. Their views are not representative of the larger community, especially the medical community, and should not limit the provision of essential healthcare services to our community. So I'll end my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Maxwell. Very much appreciated. All right, next up is 360-417-7718. And you can go ahead. There we go.
Hello.
You're online. Hello, and who's this?
Hi, my name is Sheena Younger.
Okay, and Ms. Younger, have you
can
been
I
sworn
go
in?
ahead with my statement?
Yeah, have you been sworn in, Ms. Younger?
No,
Oh, okay, let me swear you in real quick. Do you swear firm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this proceeding?
I do.
Okay, wonderful. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. My name is Sheena Younger. I've lived in Sequim since 2011. I have been actively involved in my community as president of our chamber. I'm a Rotarian, and I've worked on several school bond campaign issues as well. My community's health and safety is of utmost importance to me, and I've advocated for it in many different capacities. I would like to speak to the fears that this clinic will somehow destroy our community. Nothing our tribe has ever done would point to them allowing harm to come to our community. If something was causing harm, they have demonstrated that they would take action. Our tribe has not only demonstrated their commitment to our community, but their dedication to the health and wellness of their community and the consistent protection of our community as a whole. When our community had a primary care shortage, our tribe answered the call and built a beautiful clinic. When our beloved railroad bridge trestle collapsed, our tribe paid to replace it and did it in a first-class fashion. They consistently answer the call for all of our local T-ball teams, our Boys and Girls Club, and multiple other community organizations when they need assistance. And when I personally needed assistance, when my nephew was unfortunately killed in 2012, and we were having a funeral, and my sister forgot that we would need chairs, I went to Cedars at Dungeness, not knowing a single person there, and asked if I could rent the chairs. They were given to me to use without even a credit card for a deposit, and I was told just bring them back when you're done. This is who our tribe is. They're caring, they're compassionate. They always do things first class and well thought out. I am very grateful to have our tribal neighbors here, and I support this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Younger. All right, before the next speaker, let me point something out I forgot to mention before we got started here. I mentioned this at the very beginning of the hearing, but you've already probably all forgotten that. And that is, if you want a copy of the decision, or rather get a notice, I think, of the decision, one or the other, I don't recall how the city's going to do it. We'll need to have either your email address or your mailing address. It's preferred that we just get your email address because it's easier, I think, for the city to distribute the decision or the notice of this decision that way. In several ways you can give us that information. I think one of the ways is just in the question and answer there, just say, I'd like a copy of the decision emailed to me, and then write out your email decision there. If you'd rather not have your email address, posted online there, because we may be posting all of everything that was put into the question and answer at the website, you can go ahead and email Ms. Sundane there at the email contact says tsundane@sequimwa.gov. If you don't have a computer, you're participating by phone, you can also phone in an email address or phone in your mailing address to the city's contact number. That's 360-582-6598. Or the final option is just when you testify, you can say what your address is or your email address. I think verbally saying what your email address is that's a bit hazardous, because it's very easy to be off a letter or something, and then you never get it. So as I said, I think for the easiest way, if you want to get a copy of the decision or notice of the decision, is to email Ms. Sundane there, or just put it into the question and answer. So with that, I'm going to stop the share again so I can more clearly see who wants to participate at this point. And let's see. Looks like the next one I have for a phone number is 360-452-7891. Put her on, or him on. All right. Just need to unmute that if we can. Anthony, it looks like I still have a symbol there that says that the phone link isn't open.
Yes, user, you still have to unmute your phone. Press *6 to unmute.
Oh, okay. That's how you do that. All right. Thank you. All right. Perfect. Okay. So who's on the line there?
It was Dr. Maxwell. I think it's a duplicate.
Oh.
That shows
Oh,
you.
okay. Okay, all right, we're good then. All right, anyone else with a phone line that want to participate at this point? Because as far as people who are just participating by phone, I don't have any other raised hand. Remember, that's a *9 if you want to say something. So, all right, great. Let's move on then. It looks like Rebecca Hurst is first on my list. That's H-O-R-S-T. Ms. Hurst, are you there? You need to unmute yourself.
We go.
There you go.
You did. Hi.
Okay, and have you been sworn in?
I did that swearing in before, but I can do it again.
No, you're good. All right, as long as you understand you're still sworn in, you go ahead, and I'll start the timer here. Great.
All right. Examiner Albright, my name is Rebecca Horst, and I'm a 39-year resident of Sequim who lives a couple blocks southwest of the Civic Center, only a couple minutes walk to the Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe's comprehensive MAC clinic building site. I own my own home, and I have no concerns about the future recovery clients that will be receiving comprehensive care. I support the approval of the agreement between the Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe and the city of Sequim. I trust the tribe, who has volunteered CEPA conditions beyond necessary for any other clinic. As a survivor of toxic trauma in 2005-2006, I voluntarily attended a dialectical behavior therapy class for 1 year with other clients of Peninsula Mental Health. Some clients court-ordered as part of their SUD and OUD recovery. A year in that class, I never questioned my safety, and I even gave my fellow classmates rides home. So the idea that anyone would consider my recovery peers experiencing this kind of personal growth a danger is absurd to me. And to question childcare. There was a baby born to one of my classmates, and we all took turns holding him during class. However, I do feel fear and danger from a group calling themselves Save Our Sequim. Last November, when their members discussed arming themselves and patrolling the town near my home, I was terrified. They are aggressive and relentless. I've directly been defamed and dehumanized as the person who created Sequim for Safety and Stabilization. I experienced their smear campaigning in my church, so I don't go anymore. I've been smear campaigned in the grassroots service organization I participated in for 34 years since the age of 12. I do not consider SOS Sequim, and they do not speak for me. The Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe, on the other hand, provides a tutor to all Native students like my daughter, not just their own, in the Sequim School District. As a student myself, I benefited from their strong belief in education and their citizens teaching, working as staff roles like counselors, and attending school with me as my classmates, which in this small town equates to being like siblings. So it hurts me deeply to hear them called greedy and dishonest, especially by a person, Jody Wilkie, who speaks for Sequim and is from Port Townsend. The SOS chair says they're only concerned with the location, yet on October 19th, 2020, she publicly posted on Citizens of Grays Harbor and Beyond Group opposing a tribal government grant award for a comprehensive MAC clinic by the Quinault Nation, claiming these are going in like Starbucks. And previously, she was recorded on YouTube calling this clinic a Hooters next to a convent. There is clearly an immaturity and a willful ignorance. The concerted effort in opposition to a tribal government grant has no bearing on the decision to approve this agreement, for which I support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Horst. Thank you very much. All right. Next is Vicky. Vicky, you want to join us at this point? Oh, looks like she got off. How about M. Glenn? M. Glenn, did you want to say something? You need to unmute yourself. All right, go ahead. Have you been sworn in?
No, I have not.
Okay. Do you swear firm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this proceeding?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Great. My name is Mike Glenn, and I am the CEO of Jefferson Healthcare, a public hospital district in Port Townsend. And I am also a resident of Sequim. We were involved in the early planning discussions with the Jamestown Tribe and their clinic and Olympic Medical Center and NOME and other representatives for the purpose of expanding important substance abuse disorder services for our region. Those discussions were very collaborative and fruitful, and it was really rewarding to see all three lead organizations working as closely together as they were. Jefferson Healthcare currently has several primary care clinics. And at last count, we had 16 providers that are licensed and are actively prescribing Suboxone and providing medically assisted treatment. It's a wonderful service for our community, and we are taking care of patients and witnessing firsthand the transformational recovery that these patients who are our neighbors are undergoing. On occasion, our providers are met with a patient who requires the day-to-day treatment regimen. And that is not the treatment methodology that our clinics embrace. But our providers believe that that would be a better a clinical approach for the particular stage of the disease that patient has. The Jamestown MAT clinic would be a wonderful option for our providers to take better care of these patients. So we were supportive from the collaborative approach and regional approach to MAT treatment. We could not be happier with the progress that the tribe has made in doing this work. I could not feel better about the integrity of the leadership from top to bottom. And the medical community of Jefferson County is very supportive of this clinic and looks forward to having it to take care of a slice of our patients in a more comprehensive way.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Glenn. Perfect, right down to the 3 minutes. Appreciate your testimony very much. Let's move on to Karen. Karen, you want to join us at this point? And need to unmute
Yes,
yourself?
I just unmuted myself.
Okay, and have you been sworn in?
I have not.
Okay, do you swear firm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this proceeding?
I do.
All right, okay, go ahead.
I have followed the clinic I live in Sequim. I'm Karen Hogan. I live in Sequim. I have followed the clinic controversy in quotes since last summer. I also listened to the hearings and have done a cursory review of Ms. Goldberg's documents. Like Ms. Goldberg, I am concerned with protecting the social environment of Sequim, which is why I support the clinic and the MDSN. Did I get that right? Agreement.
MDNS, close.
MDNS, okay. Alphabet soup. For me,
Right.
It comes down to, do I trust professionals trained in epidemiology, public health, state-of-the-art medical treatment for OUD, law enforcement, and service providers for those who are housing and food insecure, or Jody Wilkie, who has, by her own admission, failed miserably in treating 20-some individuals who abuse alcohol and who has been the leader in creating a hostile environment in Sequim. Over the past year and a half, she has promoted distrust and demonization of the tribe, presenting it through SOS Collateral and social media as a greedy, nefarious entity out to take over the lives of the residents of Sequim. It is significant that SOS's co-defendant, Parkwood Community, which is owned by John Gibson, I think it's John Gibson Company, a California real estate company developer, sent out a newsletter to its residents last December with the following intro on the front page. The Indian tribe has another scheme to line their pockets with money at the expense of the Sequim community. In addition, SOS Collateral and social media have demonized those who are housing and food insecure. That rhetoric has had a severe impact on the social environment in Sequim. It's time for it to come to an end. Community isn't about otherizing, it's about facing problems and supporting solutions, including being inclusive of the voices of those who are marginalized. It's time for healing that. The tribe has a history of providing high quality health care to the residents of Sequim. There is no reason to think they would do otherwise. I support this and ask that the toxic rhetoric come to an end.
Okay. Karen, were you the one that said we were mispronouncing one of the clinic names? Was that
Yes.
your comment? Okay, could you just share with us how to do that correctly?
Let me see if I can find it. I think it's Dijawalik.
Dijawalik. Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that.
I sent it to you. I think I sent it to you. And it's really disrespectful, and it shows the, to me, the disrespect that SOS and Mr. Spence has for the indigenous tribes here, that they have do not know how to pronounce that.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your comment. And
Mr.
let me
Olbrecht?
comment also on the, oh, what was that, Mr. Murphy?
I just wanted to offer the tutorial I got on how to pronounce the Deed Gua Clinic.
Oh my God, okay.
It's Deed Gua like guacamole, and then Leach, Deed Gua Leach. I offer that.
Leach. Okay, all right, okay. Yeah, I'll do my best to say that correctly, and I mean no disrespect. I'm just very terrible with names, and frankly, if you all know how to pronounce my name, you're doing really well in my estimation. Let me say something about the Q and answer there. You know, I've repeatedly said that it should just be for questions. Nonetheless, I was getting a lot of comments during the course of the hearing, and I want to make clear, because as a hearing examiner, I'm not allowed to get information outside of the hearing record. And so I didn't read those as they came in. I only went through it when it was time for me to relay the questions to the panelists and the witnesses. And I just skimmed over, you know, if I saw something wasn't a question, I skipped over it without reading the substance. So I was not engaged in any communications, you know, outside of the hearing record. I didn't read those comments except for the questions themselves. And the one exception, the reason I'm talking about this now was Karen's comment about the mispronunciation, because I did see that and brought it out in the open. But I just want to make that clear. Otherwise, I would make that an exhibit, but then I would have to give a bunch of people an opportunity to respond to what's in there, which would take a lot of time. And it's just more, it saves time, and it's you know, it's a honest observation. I did not read what those comments were saying. So, and that was to make sure that I was not getting comments outside of the hearing record. So with that, let's move on to Sarah Sullivan. Ms. Sullivan, you need to unmute yourself.
Hi.
Okay, well, perfect. All right. And have you been sworn in?
I have not.
Okay, let me swear in. Do you swear firm and tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this proceeding?
Absolutely, I do. Yes.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. I am a current addict in recovery. I've struggled with opioid addiction for many years. I am a client of Matt at Known in Port Angeles, and it has been nothing but a positive journey for me. I have engaged in inpatient and outpatient treatment along with Matt. I am a firm believer that some kind of treatment and/or therapy is a key component that should be used along with Matt. As an addict in recovery, I've seen that addiction does not discriminate with the age, race, or anything. It attacks all ages of every society, every community. And I also have seen the people in recovery in the community, it is strong. And the people using the MAT program are not as likely as Ms. Wilkie has stated to commit these crimes and bring down the communities, or whatever she was stating. Like they're going to be a positive. It's going to be a positive thing to get people help. The addiction is already there, and it's not going to draw all these homeless and derogatory people in to degrade the community. It is only going to bring a positive and help everybody, you know, people's aunts, uncles, cousins, grandpas, grandmas, sons, daughters that have addiction problems. And yeah, I just want to state that, I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of medical assistant treatment they receive, whether it be methadone, Vivitrol, the Suboxone, it doesn't change that we are all people too, and we all deserve a chance at recovery. Yeah, okay. That's what I got to say.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Thank you very much. Let's move on then to Rose Marshall, your turn. And Ms. Marshall, have you been sworn in?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I was at the beginning. Does that mean I'm sworn in?
Yeah, that counts as long as you understand you're still sworn in. All right.
Okay. So I have Native American in my genealogy, so I'm not against the tribe. So I object to a lot of the violent accusations being made by many people on this call. But I'm going to say that I'm very disappointed in the tribe for 5D, 5E, and especially 5K in the MDNS, that they have shown their lack of being forthright to the public by striking those things that would help our city and the public. And that's they've added a lost tax revenue in 5D. And why get rid of a no good neighbor agreement? I guess they want to be a bad neighbor. I mean, the opposite of good is bad. I don't quite get that. That doesn't make any sense. And 5K, they were going to waive their limited sovereignty, and they decided not to do that. And the only reason they would want to do that is because they don't want to have us to have anything to say with how the effects may affect the community. And so that's my my main things. There are many more, but those are the three that stood out to me this morning. I wanted to say that they have created distrust by striking things that could protect the citizens of Sequim. And we're not a small group of people. We're a much larger group than people want to say. Thank you very much. That's what I want to share.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. All right. Moving on then to Vicki Lowe. Are you there, Ms. Lowe? Just need to unmute yourself.
Yes.
All right, perfect. And have you been sworn in, Ms. Lowe?
I have not.
Okay. Do you swear firm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this proceeding?
I do.
All right, go ahead.
For the record, my name is Vicki Lowe, and I've lived in Sequim my entire life, which is 55 years. I am also the executive director for the American Indian Health Commission for Washington State, so I work for all of the tribes in Washington State. And I am also a former employee of the Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe, working there during the development of their health programs, including the Jamestown Family Health Clinic. Having witnessed Ms. Wilkie's testimony yesterday, I've added some comments. I just want to say that I have emailed her twice explaining the letter from the Secretary of Washington State Department of Health that she used during her testimony. The letter is taken out of context. And in response to a tribal behavioral health program attestation developed through consultation with Washington tribes and the Department of Health, it really doesn't have anything to do with the MAP program. She's conflated this process with the process the Jamestown tribe is going through for the OGP facility they're building. I have twice told her this about the oversight, and she's ignored it, and she also ignored when Mr. Sinkowski testified to that. Back to my regular comments. I grew up here in a town that over years has become a city. The last 25 years, I have lived within a 2-block radius in Maple and Prairie Street, not that far from the site of where the MAP clinic will be. I have seen our neighborhood change drastically from an environment where it was okay for my children to play in the front yard without constantly watching them, to an environment where I lock my door in the daytime if I am home alone. I see this getting worse unless we address issues our community is having with addiction and crime to help beat addiction. The opioid crisis has an impact on the city of Sequim. It has strained our local primary care, emergency services, law enforcement, justice system, and community-based services. The outpatient medication assistant treatment facility proposed by the Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe will help address the opioid crisis in a positive manner, lessening the strain on these services. The proposed outpatient facility will provide services that are tailored to the needs of patients. By taking care of people who suffer from opioid use disorder in a medical model, the opportunity for patients to heal and contribute positively to our community is greatly increased. I visited the Dijwalik Clinic in Anacortes, and I am been very impressed. It is so safe there that we have held several meetings in the conference room of that facility. With the location of the Jamestown facility in our community, I see my neighborhood becoming a safer place and my property values increasing. The Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe has been involved in many projects since their federal recognition.
Miss Lowe,
which is the Jamestown Family Health Clinic. Is my time up?
No, I lost you there in like the last 15 seconds. Your connection was pretty bad, but I could make out what you were saying for the most part until just the last about 10 seconds or something.
Oh, sorry. Okay. The Jamestown Tribe, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Sort of.
Okay. The Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe has been involved in many community projects since their federal recognition in 1981, not the least of which is the Jamestown Family Health Clinic. I think we need only to look at the way these other projects have been carried out to understand the stewardship that the tribe will provide in this project. The tribe has a long relationship with the land and the community here, providing a vested interest in helping create a safer and more caring community. The tribe has demonstrated volunteering to follow CEPA conditions, even though the project wouldn't cause adverse environmental impacts. The conditions being required of the tribe go beyond what any non-tribal provider is required to do. The Jamestown Slalom tribe is a small tribe that is nationally known in its efforts in natural resources and healthcare. History is important to understanding the future. The tribe is a government. Governments don't pay taxes, however they fund programs and services. The tribe has done this in many ways throughout the history of our community. I just want to close by saying those who will benefit from this facility are the people who you will least likely hear from. Please consider that as you hear comments from the community. The system in place is part of a greater system in our society that allows the people with the most resources to control what happens to those with the least resources. It is important for us to consider all members of our community, not just the loudest members. Save Our Sequim does not represent me. This is also my Sequim. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next is G. Margaret. Ready to join us? And need to unmute yourself. There you go. Okay, and who are you now? Miss Margaret? Are you there? Still can't hear you. G. Margaret? Anthony, you don't know what's going on with this one maybe, or? G. Mark. Last call, you had your hand raised and you managed to, according to my side, it says you unmuted yourself. So if you just talk now, we should be able to hear you. Okay. All right. Well, if you, for some reason you're trying to connect with us and you're not, let me share screen again on how we can address that situation. Let's see. There we go. Okay, Miss Margaret, there's that contact information. If you're not able to connect, then go ahead and email Miss T. Sandane there at squimwa.gov or give us a call at 360-582-6598 and we'll see if there's some way to get you involved. At worst, maybe we'll just have you testify on Tuesday then if for whatever reason you're not able to get in today. So with that, I'm going to stop my share and go back to the next speaker. Anyone else? You just need to raise your hand virtually if you want to participate at this point. Does anyone else want to participate? I see no raised hands. All right, final call. Oh, there's a Debbie T. Dizelle. All right, you need to unmute yourself, Ms. Dizelle.
Hi.
Okay. Oh, there you are. Have you been sworn in, Ms. Dizelle?
I've been watching the whole testimony today, but you can.
Oh, okay. Well, let me just swear you in real quick. Do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this proceeding?
Yes, I do.
All right, go ahead.
So I've lived in Sequim for 5 years. It's a wonderful community, and I'm familiar with the tribe, and they do a lot of good for the community. Sadly, though, I've learned throughout the process of living here that they do with one hand and take it with another. And so I think people are conditioned to the fact that they feel that the tribe does a lot here. And on the surface, I think they do. But on the other hand, it's a lot for profit. And when you take a look at all the things that they have offered up in the beginning, on the mitigated circumstances on the MDNS, and then they've taken it away. So first they gave us all these great options of things that they were going to do to protect us. And now they're taking them away. And that's what I've seen them do constantly over the 5 years that I've lived here. They give it and take it away. So I just don't feel comfortable that what they've proposed to do for the city, for the citizens of the city, is enough. And I really think that they've cited it wrong. It should not be anywhere in the city of Sequim with 7,500 people and with a high rate of senior citizens. So I really believe that they have the wrong place. that they've purchased. They need to sell that back, maybe to OMC. And let's have a hospital. Let's have an ER. And put that in Blinn. Put their mat in Blinn or somewhere else, but not Sequim. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dizelle. All right. Okay, anybody else? Again, we're down to a final call here. All right. Well, let me do my screen share again one last time in case someone is having problems participating. If you are not able to participate today, please, for some technical reason, your phone wasn't or your computer wasn't working, your internet connection was off, those kind of reasons, go ahead and email Ms. Sandane there at tsandane@squimwa.gov, and we'll try to get you in on Tuesday, or give us a call at 360-582-6598, and we'll do that as well. I think beyond that, it looks like, again, I'm going to do a final. Oh, I see we have two more hands that just popped up, so let's give them a chance. Laura Updike, you there? Need to unmute yourself.
I'm
All
here.
right. And have you been sworn in, Ms. Updike?
No, I have not.
Okay, do you swear affirm tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this proceeding?
I do.
All right, okay, go ahead.
Okay, my name is Laura Updike. I live on Spruce Street inside the Sequim city limits. I moved to Sequim in 2006 and started my family of now 6 children here because it is a great place to raise children. My husband works for the school district, and we are very involved with our church community and know a lot of people in this town. While I trust that MAT and the proposed clinic is the best type of care available for those who want to recover from opioid addiction, I feel that ordinary citizens such as myself, those who are not involved directly with the community of addicts or healthcare, have valid concerns about how the placement and size of this facility will affect the nature of our town. I have spoken with many friends and neighbors about this facility, and almost all of them are opposed to this facility being built where it's planned to be built. Unfortunately, many of them do not have the time or energy to actively oppose in a political or legal way the tribe's plans to build this MAT clinic. Thus, we are grateful for the leadership of Jody Wilkie and other SOS leaders and members who've spoken out and worked hard and raised money to get a lawyer to make sure this new MAT clinic does not negatively affect our community. I myself have volunteered for SOS seeking signatures for a petition. I visited dozens of houses in my neighborhood, and I found that the supermajority of residents were against this facility. I have found SOS members to be respectful, industrious, kind people who are involved in their communities. Some of the ones I have met have children who are addicts themselves and were well aware of the challenges addicts face and want addicts to receive treatment. We are not against MAT treatment. We applaud efforts to provide the best recovery services available to drug addicts in our community. What we are against is the placement of the facility near shopping locations and long-term care facilities, senior citizen housing, and even in walking distance of many of our schools. We are also opposed to the idea that a clinic that serves people who live hours away, who need almost daily visits for their care, is good for the patient or good for our community and region. It belies common sense that someone who must travel 2 hours each direction several times a week for their medical treatment has no incentive to move closer to treatment. As the clinic in Anacortes has shown by planning to build housing for their patients, there is a demand among patients to live in close proximity to their treatment, and many of them are housing insecure. Furthermore, while I admire the beautiful buildings that the Jamestown tribe has built, and while I am grateful for the Jamestown Medical Clinic, which I have used as a primary care facility myself, and while I appreciate the many generous charitable contributions the tribe has made in our town, I do not believe they are solely motivated by goodwill and a desire to help people. Like all people, the developers have both selfless and selfish motives. Like all people, when they are excited about a project that seems to be profitable and effective in reaching their goals, they are likely to dismiss the concerns of other people who see problems with their planning, even if those concerns are valid. No one can reasonably argue that the tribe built their casino to help people. Clearly, that is a profit-seeking endeavor that has hurt people who become addicted to gambling and sometimes jeopardize their family's financial future when they pursue that addiction. Just anecdotally, my husband has twice given rides to people who were begging for rides on the streets, who appeared to be homeless or at least impoverished. They both wanted to be taken to the casino. Also, I have a family friend who was in prison for a long time, and when we moved to Sequim, warned us that it's a popular place to go when released from prison because of the many churches that provide charities such as soup kitchens and because of the low amount of rain. I find it hard to believe that there is no incentive for people who are addicted to drugs to move here. Addicts are people who are by definition leading unstable lives. To believe that bringing more addicts to Sequim from all over 2 different counties will not bring instability to Sequim seems nonsensical. And I believe that I'm speaking for the majority of Sequim residents, certainly for the majority of my circle of friends. And that is quite a wide circle in this town because I live here and I've interacted with so many people through raising 6 children, through being active in church and active in my community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Updike. All right. Okay, anybody else? No, don't see anybody. Okay, so again, well, yeah, I'll share that screen one more time. Just want to be real sure that everybody who wants to participate has had that chance. Like I said, if you ran into any technical problems today and weren't able to participate because of that, go ahead and email Ms. Sunday in there or give her a call and we'll get you in on Tuesday morning then. But otherwise, unless the attorneys have something else that needs to be brought up, we are continued until next Tuesday morning. That would be, let me get the date on that correct, November 24th, 2020 at 9 a.m. So thank you all for your participation. I thank the public for your tremendous patience in waiting through this. We're almost done. I hope you found this this hearing useful in terms of understanding what's going on with this project, and we'll hear from you again on November 24th. See you all then. Bye.